Okay, so I just got a question on LinkedIn, and it was really interesting. It just got me thinking. So the question was about other applications for telerobotics, like can it be used in philanthropy or other areas other than obviously surgical robotics, where a lot of people are getting to know, the famous surgical robot that did surgery on a grape. And it's really cool to think about where some of these other applications could be. And before I answer that question, I want to go back and give a little bit of history. Before the Da Vinci, or which is of course the most famous telerobot out there, the original purpose of that overall construction was a purely mechanical remote manipulation device, first developed under an ARPA grant in the 1950s, and its sole purpose was for manipulating radioactive materials and allowing the operator to be at a safe distance. That technology was then turned into an early prototype of what would eventually become the Da Vinci, called the Green Telepresence Surgical System, if I remember correctly. And so that was still a, kind of a hybrid between still a relatively mechanical system, but it did have some more robotic support for it. And that originally was going to be a robot where you would have a module that's on tire tracks or something like that, and it would go out into the battlefield where you've got a wounded soldier, and the surgeon would be in a bunker or something operating this robot remotely to stabilize the wounded soldier, and then I assume drag them back to safety once internal bleeding or whatever has been managed. And then what happened was in kind of the mid to late 1980s, there was a videotape presentation of what I believe is the first laparoscopic procedure. It was a resection of a chunk of colon. And as the story goes, Dr. Green saw this presentation, went back to, I believe ARPA is now called DARPA at this point, and said, cancel this project. We need to repurpose the technology I'm working on. Telerobotics is really ideal for laparoscopic surgery. And so that robot eventually became something called the Lenny, which was still being developed at SRI International. And then that became something called the Mona. And around that time is when Intuitive Surgical was founded. They actually did some experimentations with the Mona. And then, of course, now we've got the famous Da Vinci out there. So that's the progression of telerobotics in terms of surgery. But it began as a way of manipulating radioactive materials. And so that's why it was a teleoperated robot, because you actually wanted the user way far away. So where else could you do that? The person who asked me this question came up with an example of remote planting trees. Oh, well, that sounds fantastic. Teleoperated robotics, could be doing construction work on the moon, or anywhere. You could be operating in some location where human beings are, for whatever reason, may not want to really work there very well. I don't know if Antarctic would be a good example, but there just could be some just different areas that are just too harsh of a climate, and you could allow a telerobot to operate remotely. So that'd be a great example. But the idea of philanthropic uses for robots, just in general, is a great concept. And the suggestion of having a teleoperated robot plant a tree somewhere and you get to experience that, which of course would be really cool because, why would you build a robot if it didn't have super cool, shovel hands, and maybe in case you need to cut roots, maybe you have a little chainsaw hand. Bruce Campbell would approve, I'm certain. That would be really cool. So, I don't have a lot of familiarity with that because for the past 8 years, my head's been buried building a surgical robot and getting it cleared with the FDA. So that was taking up a lot of my attention. But you got me thinking. I really love that idea of just human extensions for teleoperated robots and really being able to have some kind of unique human experience, but do it in ways where maybe it's just not easy for you to travel there. It could be, much more economical if you're planting trees in some remote location to basically timeshare a robot and have that experience, operating the robot. And again, it would have really cool end effectors, because why would you build a robot that doesn't have, crazy shovel hands and a chainsaw and flamethrower? Because why not? You got to throw that kind of stuff in there, right? Yeah, I think it's an awesome idea, and you should maybe reach out to me. Let's start a company. Let's do this. Nonprofit, robots for human experiences. No matter where you live, you can actually go out there and get a hands-on experience doing something, helping, operating a robot. It's certainly a lot easier than building an autonomous robot to do the same kinds of things. So I'm down. I'm down.